In this episode of The Practical Woodsman, we're going to be talking all about solar chargers, solar panels, power banks, and all of these things as they relate to what you need to know in order to prepare a bug-out bag, an emergency bag, if you're going to be in a disaster area, if society collapses, those sorts of things. Everything you need to take into consideration and be aware of when it comes to these solar panels, these solar chargers, these power banks. Would you like to see some images that occur from later on in this show? Well, take a looky-see. Hanging these solar panels off the back of their backpacks and hiking all day, and then they get into camp and they've got a full charge on something. That's not true. All the ports are sealed, so there's a waterproofness to these. I'll tell you what, having to get pretty creative to try to drain these batteries. A portion of it heats up. That heat seeps through the medium. We're picking back up at 57%. That seems like it could take a lot of abuse. Then it would be best to lay it down flat. You got to think about where you're at on the planet. Well, it's kind of disappointing. It's about 210. Oh, I reckon that's about right, eh? Boy, that'd really put a hair in your biscuit, wouldn't it? This one actually says that it's charging. If that looked interesting to you, stick around, don't go away. We have to do the musical introduction first. So hang tight, I'll be right back. Good morning there, everybody. Welcome back to The Practical Woodsman. I'm Rhett, the creator and host of The Practical Woodsman. That's right. It's my genius which has brought this all into existence. I wanted to talk about solar chargers, solar panels, solar chargers. As you guys can see here, I got several spread out before me. You know, we're living in the future, aren't we? Where you can just take a solar panel with you out into the wilderness, or you can pack one into your bug out bag and you don't have to worry about a thing. Ain't that right? Is that right? Well, that's sort of what we're going to be talking about in this episode of the show. I've got lots of different solar chargers, solar panels, and there's different things to keep in mind with them that we're going to talk about. Let me show off some of the ones I've got here. This solar panel right here, or this solar battery, solar charger, solar power bank, if you want to call it that, is the model that I prefer to keep in my bug out bags. I keep them everywhere. So I've got 4 or 5 of these things. And what it is it's a power bank with solar panels built into it. Do these really work? We're going to talk about that. I'm going to show them, I'm going to demonstrate these, and we're going to do some tests on them, just see how practical they are for everyday use. So there's one style of power bank, and that is, I think, I can't see it, the print is too small, but I think it's 28,000 milliamp hours or something like that. These are very nice. I like them for emergencies. I've even taken them backpacking, but on their own, are they sufficient? We'll find that out in this episode. You might have seen some of these power banks here. They don't have multiple solar panels. They've just got a solar panel on the back, and this also is a hardy 42,800 milliamp hour power bank, solar power bank. Supposedly, theoretically, it's 42,800 milliamp hours. I'm not sure I believe that, but it is a lipolymer battery, and that makes them lighter, makes them more compact. The other type is a lithium ion. So those are the two types, lithium ion and lipolymer. And the lipolymers have their benefits. They're usually lighter. They can usually fit into different form factors and that sort of thing. Whereas the lithium ions are usually a little bit heavier and have to adhere to a certain shape, from what I understand. But anyway, we're going to talk about this battery here, or this solar power bank here, and its benefits and its pros and its cons. Let me show you the other panels I've got. I've got this 40-watt solar charger from Libra. I'd never heard of them, but I like the 40-watt, and I like the make of this thing. And I have not tested this out at all. I've not plugged anything into it. It's not been out in the sun, so you guys are going to get to see me learning about this thing from scratch. But I really like this design. In a cloth enclosure, folds up almost like a, what they call those things when we were in school? Trapper keeper. Remember the old trapper keepers? And it's got a pocket on it so that you can keep the gear, cordage and stuff like that here in this pocket, which I really like. And then I've got several of these Flexsolar chargers. I've got a 20-watt and I've got two 40 watts. We're going to be testing those out. Why do I have two 40-watt Flexsolar chargers? Because the first one I got wasn't charging. And so the company reached out to me after I left a bad review. They said, what would you like us to do? Would you like us to refund you? And I said, no, don't refund me. Send me another one so I can test it out to see if maybe I just got a bad unit. And so this is the new one right here that I have yet to try. I've yet to use it. And I've got the old one. We're also going to use that and just see how these two compare. And we'll get an idea of the Flexsolar 40-watt backpacking solar panels. And then I've got the BigBlue. It's a 28-watt. And to be perfectly honest, to cut to the chase here, now I don't know, I haven't tested out a couple of these other ones, but I've had the most success with this BigBlue solar charger. It's only 28 watts, but let's talk about wattage here for a second. The best illustration I've ever seen for understanding electricity and wattage and amperage and volts and that sort of thing was a demonstration that a guy does on the internet using bags of water. He takes bags that are full of water and he sets them in the sink, and he uses that to demonstrate watts, volts, and amps. And so the bags of water in themselves, that quantity of electricity would be considered watts. It's just an amount of electricity, a portion of electricity. Then he takes a weight and he puts it on top of the bag, and of course that squeezes the water in the bags, and he says that that is volts. Volts is pressure put on the watts, put on the electricity source. And then what he did was he poked a hole in the bag, and the stream coming out of the bag, because of the pressure of the volts on the watts, that is to say the pressure of the weight on the bag of water, was making the water squirt out. And he said that that is amps. And then he collected some of that water that was spraying out of that bag. He collected it in his hand, and then he held it up to the camera and he said, look, here's some watts of electricity. Again, it's a quantity of electricity that you've got access to. So that's was helpful for me in understanding what watts are. What watts are. Here's another interesting thing to keep in mind, is that now, I'm not an expert in electricity. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not an electrician. I'm sure there's electricians out there who are going to be correcting me, and you're welcome to do that, because honestly, I acknowledge the fact that my understanding is very limited and modest. But according to my understanding, when you plug, for example, your cell phone into your wall outlet, the only thing that's required for that phone charge is 20 watts. So when you're plugging into the wall outlet, you're expecting 20 watts for the charge on your phone or a power bank or anything like that. The reason why that's important is because these solar panels, none of them are 100% efficient. So if you have, for example, this Flexsolar 20-watt solar panel, you're not going to get the power of charge like you would from your wall unit, from like your wall outlet, even though it says it's 20 watts, and even though if you're plugging into your wall, you'd be drawing on 20 watts of electricity, or you'd be accessing 20 watts of electricity. That's not necessarily so if you've got a solar panel that it's 20 watts, because again, they're never 100% efficient. So if I take this 20-watt solar charger out into the sun, I might be able to get 8 watts of electricity. And so I think that's why the BigBlue here has always hit the sweet spot for me. If you line it up well in the sun, then that excess 28 watts rather than 20, just that little bit of excess there, allows you to draw more closely the amount of watts, or access more closely the amount of wattage that you would from a wall outlet. And that was why I started ordering these 40-watt chargers, because I said, well, if that's true for 28 watts, then for 40 watts, even in low sunlight or less than stellar sunlight, I should be able to draw the maximum amount of wattage that is possible to charge my power bank or to charge my phone or whatever, things like that. So I'm interested in seeing what's better, this Libra 40-watt solar charger or this Flexsolar. And we're going to run some tests on these. I'm going to actually take these out into the sun. We're going to hook them to some power banks and everything like that, and we're going to time them. Now, the way we're going to do this is we're going to use a very large, so this would be something like I would take out into the woods, not necessarily this one here. I would probably take this right here anytime I go into the woods, or if I wanted to keep it in a bug out bag or something like that. The reason, and this is actually my favorite power bank right here, but the reason why I wouldn't take it is because it's not designed specifically for the outdoors, so you can see that like all the ports are wide open to the weather and all that. But I'll tell you what I really like about this power bank is that it has a digital readout which tells you exactly the power remaining in the power bank. So right now it's at 68%. We're going to actually drain this some. I want to get this drained and work with a lower number, and we're just going to test out these different solar chargers using this power bank. Now, that's another thing I want to tell you. A lot of folks, if you're not used to this sort of thing, I know a lot of you out there know these things well already, but there's a lot of people who don't, and there's a lot of people who would like to get their bug out bags or their emergency bags well prepared and know how to do that. You always want to have a power bank. You never want to be trying to charge your phone directly off of your solar panels or your solar chargers. Why is that? Well, there's a couple of reasons. For one reason, you want to be able to be on the move. Remember that the premise that I'm always working with, if you folks are new to this channel, I'm a preparedness guy. I'm a preparedness, survival, bushcraft, that sort of thing guy. And so the premise I'm always working on is that you're on the move. And I'm a year-round wilderness backpacker, which means that backpacking is the model that I'm using always for a survival situation. In fact, I was just watching the other day World War Z, that Brad Pitt movie, the zombie movie, and the character that he plays there is a guy of a lot of experience being in war zones and in disaster areas and stuff like that. And what he said in the movie that stood out to me, he says that people who stay put don't usually make it. It's the people who stay on the move, you got to keep moving, are the ones that tend to fare better. And he was talking to a Mexican family there. He had to switch to Spanish. Hay que moverse, tienes que seguir moviéndose. No se puede quedar en tan solo un lugar, tiene que moverse. And so the message is you got to keep moving, and people who move typically fare better. So that is the premise I'm working with in a situation where society is collapsing or anything like that, or you're in a true survival situation or in a disaster situation. You want to be able to keep moving. You want to be mobile. So that's the big mistake I see. People who talk about these things, it's the big mistake I see most of them making, is their idea is that they're going to hole up somewhere and stay there and just kill anybody that gets around them, right? They stock up on ammunition and all that stuff. That's not my approach. My approach is to be on the move. And so because that is my mindset, that's the premise I'm always working on. And that's the premise we're going to be talking about with these solar panels as far as how practical really are they. Do they allow you to continue moving? Well, that brings us back to these power banks. So imagine you don't have the power bank, but you want to charge your telephone, or you want to charge your GPS, or you want to charge your radio, or you want to charge your flashlight, or anything like that. And you're relying on plugging directly into a solar panel to directly charge the phone or the radio or whatever thing it is you're charging. It means you're stuck there. Now, I know you've seen these videos or these pictures of folks hanging these solar panels off the back of their backpacks and hiking all day, and then they get into camp and they've got a full charge on something. That's not true. I'm telling you from experience, that doesn't work, because when you're hanging the solar panel off the back of your backpack, you're drawing a very small charge. I mean, it's almost, the charge that you get doing that is almost completely irrelevant. I did it not long ago on a backpacking trip, and I got into camp, and this was with the BigBlue, 28 watts. Brilliantly sunny day in snow. So, you've got light reflecting off all that snow, and I hiked through that all day long. Got into camp that night, and I bet you I didn't get but 8% charge on my power bank. So that's what I'm saying, how irrelevant that is. It really doesn't work that way. These solar panels need to be stationary and facing direct sunlight in order to really get the maximum charge, to really be worth your trouble to be carrying it at all. The second reason why you don't want to be charging your devices directly from the solar panel: when these solar panels get hot, a lot of them shut down. Not only that, but your device, your phone, can't be sitting out in the sun. So typically what you'll have to do is you'll have to shield it behind the solar panel. Even then, it can get hot. And there's some tricks for that. A lot of the reviews that you'll see, for example, on the internet of people using these solar panels, and they say, oh, my phone overheated and stuff like that, is that they're setting the solar panel down like on the hood of a car. They're sitting it down on concrete. Now, what do you know about concrete and steel? Well, if the area around a sheet of steel gets hot, what happens to the spot in the middle, like where your solar panel is? Well, that it seeps. The heat seeps through that medium, right, through the steel. And the same thing happens on concrete. If you may be setting your solar panel out on concrete, and you may be shielding your phone underneath the solar panel, but that's not going to keep your phone from overheating, because the concrete all around there is heating up, and then that heat is seeping through the concrete. So one thing I've learned that is very effective for preventing that is to set my solar panels out on the ground, out on grass. If you've got grass or vegetation, that is fantastic, because the heat absorbs into the ground, but it doesn't spread then into the area where you've shielded your phone or your power bank or whatever. It stays nice and cool underneath there. So keep that in mind. Think about where you're setting your solar panel. Are you setting it on a material or a medium that will absorb heat and seep that into areas where you're trying to keep something cool? The natural ground is the best, with vegetation, with grass. So that's the second thing, that a lot of these solar panels, they shut down. They stop working when they get too hot, which is ridiculous to me, but that's what they do. Let's go back to this Flexsolar here. We'll just use the 20 watt. With this Flexsolar design, it's got a really nice design, but do you see where the panel is, where you plug into? As you can see, that is fixed to the body of the solar panel. And what I believe happens is that when the solar panel gets super hot, and it can take the heat, but I'm not certain that this electronic port system here can take that heat. So when the panel itself gets hot, that heat seeps through this material into this electronic little electronic box, and I don't think that the little electronic box can handle that amount of heat, and I think that affects its charge. So that's my theory on that. I hope you understand the two reasons why you don't want to charge directly from your solar panel, your portable solar panel or emergency solar panel. For one, you want to be on the move. So if you stop for lunch or something like that, you're on foot and you stop for lunch or something like that, you don't want to be dependent on the half hour or so that you've got there to charge your phone. The second thing is it's very hard to shield your phone or your radio or your GPS or whatever it is you're trying to charge directly from the solar panel. It's better to plug into a power bank with a long enough cord that you can maybe keep the power bank in the shade, or you can shield it behind it in grass. But whatever you get, you see, you're storing that for later use. So if you have to scoop everything up and get going, then you're carrying your power with you, the power that you've reserved, you've saved in your power bank. And so later at a more convenient time when things are less dangerous or you don't need to be moving so much, you can stop and have that power, even in the dark, to plug your phone in and then get your charge then, not in the middle of times when you've really got to be mobile. So that's my advice. Always make sure you're carrying a power bank. With that said, we're going to use this one power bank here. It is a 32,000 milliamp hour power bank, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to drain this sucker down a little bit. Once we get it down to a low, once we drain it a little bit, then we will start hooking these power banks up and we will set them out in the sun, or these solar panels, I mean. We'll start connecting this to these solar panels, and what we'll do is we'll leave them out there for like a half hour in the same amount of sunlight, in the same conditions, and then we will see how many percentage points our power bank has jumped using each individual power bank or solar panel. How about if we get started on that? What do you say? All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to drain this battery here. It's at 68%. I'd like to get her down to like around 10%, something like that. But what we're also going to do is we're going to drain these batteries, these power banks here, because I want to be able to demonstrate to you how long it takes just like this out in the sun to get any significant charge. We'll do the same thing with this one, okay? So I've got a couple of fans here, and what we're going to do is we're going to plug into these fans and we're going to run them off these power banks, and that should give us a nice drain on the battery, on the power bank, as you might prefer to call them. So we'll turn the fan on high, and we'll also, this one has a light. So we'll keep the light on, we'll run the fan on high, and that should give us a nice power drain, so that then later we can do our tests on these things. Just real quick, something I didn't get to finish telling you earlier on. I mentioned that I wouldn't take this out into the woods with me or keep in a bug out bag or an emergency bag, because it's not made for the outdoors. You see, all the ports are wide open. That's where these excel. They've got a few extras on them, like they've got a light, so you can use that light if you don't have a flashlight on you. But also, all the ports are sealed, so there's a waterproofness to these, and they're specifically designed for outdoors. These are the kinds of things that I would recommend for emergency bags, bug out bags, backpacking, time out in the woods, traveling on foot anywhere. I like that. I like that they're sealed like that. It's true for this one too. It's completely sealed off, all the ports and everything, so that those can't get damaged or get water into them and then be useless in an emergency situation. All right, let's get this going again. We're gonna plug this in. Well, before we do that, okay, plug that into this fan. I'm gonna say, what in tarnation? What's going on with the ports there? All right, and we'll turn that on high, and that should give us a nice drain on this one. We'll check back here in a little bit. I'll tell you what, I'm having to get pretty creative to try to drain these batteries, because these batteries are pretty robust. They got a lot of juice in them. So I got this battery here hooked to the fan and the light. I'm trying to drain this one using my iPad while playing a movie. And this one also, light, fan going on. You see the power indicator there. It doesn't have percentage, it's just got a light read out there. So that's what we're working with. I'd like to get that down a couple bars. We need to be able to measure the ability of the solar panels to charge these things. All right, we've got this power bank here, find that, down to 50%. And that's enough for us to be able to measure things. I think if we do this in half-hour increments for each of these solar panels, I think that'll be just fine and dandy. So let's start with the BigBlue. That's the 28-watt solar charger. We're going to plug that in, put her out in the sun, let her sit there for a half hour, and come back and see what our percentage has jumped up to. Now remember, the capacity of this thing does matter when we're talking about percentage. So the capacity is 32,000 milliamp hours. The reason why that matters is because if we were just doing a power bank that was 10,000 milliamp hours, then the percentage would jump significantly more in a half hour than a power bank with this capacity, because the percentages are going to be all different. 10% off this battery is not at all the same as what would be 10% off of a 10,000 milliamp battery. So keep that in mind. This is a high capacity power bank that we're plugging into. So let's see what happens. So just like I mentioned earlier, you notice I don't have that sitting on the blocks. I don't have that sitting on concrete. I don't have that sitting on anything where once a portion of it heats up, that heat seeps through the medium. Vegetation is the best. And that is nice and cool, and that's going to stay nice and cool as long as that's in the shade. I realize that's flickering right there, but it's charging. It's currently at 50%. I am looking at my watch here. It's about 12:10. All right, so we'll come back in 30 minutes, see what kind of percentage jump we see. All right, it's been 30 minutes. Let's check her out. Not bad, not bad. 28 watt solar charger in 30 minutes popped us up to 57%. Now you might think that's not a lot, but you got to imagine if this were only a 10,000 milliamp hour battery pack, that'd probably be like a 25-30% jump on a 10,000 milliamp power bank. This power bank is 32,000 milliamp hours, so that's significant. That is really significant for this 28 watt solar charger. Now, another thing I didn't mention, which you got to keep in mind also, is the output of these things. Can you see this? Let's see if you can see that. So it's putting out 2.4 amps. So remember the illustration that we used at the beginning. You got 2 bags of water. That's the watts. You put a weight on top of the water so that now the bag is pressurized. It's trying to push that water out. Those are volts. You poke a hole in the bag, and what pops out? Amps. So this would be like the water spraying out of the bag. The max you can get is 2.4. Now let's take a look at some of those other solar chargers and see what their output is. On this new Flexsolar, it doesn't say. It doesn't say what it is. Okay, I looked right by this. It does say what the amps are. 5 volt, 3 amp. So I reckon that's supposedly giving us 3 amps. I'm curious to see how this Flexsolar does next. So this is the new Flexsolar charger Let's check it out. It's never been used, and let's see how she does. Let's remember where we're leaving off. We're leaving off at, it's 57% is what it says. So we're picking back up at 57%. We're gonna leave this out here for 30 minutes and see what happens. Again, notice how I've got that down there. It's amazing when you're using vegetation as the platform where you're putting your thing. Just that shade will protect that from intense heat because it doesn't bleed. The heat doesn't bleed into here. You know, right there it's very warm. Right here it's very cool. So we're just gonna leave that there for 30 minutes. Let's see what time it is. All right, it is 5 to 1. All right, I realize that there's a lot of noise in the background here. That's by necessity because I've got these fans going. We're trying to drain some of these batteries, remember? Real quick, while we've got the Flexsolar 40 watt out there charging that power bank, I wanted to talk to you for a second about the different types of builds of these solar panels. We've got two here that have this cloth design, and I'm pretty fond of this cloth design. Let me tell you why. It all goes back to heat absorption and heat dissipation. These Flexsolar solar panels are made out of this very thick, kind of rubbery material, rigid rubbery material, very simple, but they seem very robust. And so when I first started examining these Flexsolar solar panels, I thought, that seems like it could take a lot of abuse. And that was why I invested in them. Now here's something that I did not foresee happening. Like I said again, heat absorption. Because of the material, the whole thing, when it's sitting out on a hot day in the hot sun, this gets very hot. And earlier, like I said, the solar panels can handle that. But I ain't so certain about the electronic unit that you plug into that is actually fixed right to the body of this thing. So if you can imagine the intense heat that this thing absorbs because of the material that it's made out of, it just absorbs a lot of heat. That heat has to transfer into this box unit here, this electronic unit that you plug into to charge your devices. So that's why I'm particularly fond of these cloth style units. They may not seem as robust as the Flexsolar, this rubbery material, and I'm sure they're not as robust. But even though they might not be as robust, these suckers do a good job of absorbing and dissipating heat because of this cloth design. You set this out there for a long time and the panels can take the heat, but everything around it, that cloth, is dissipating the heat that these panels absorb. That's a really nice aspect of these types of solar panels. I really think that in the long run, these are much superior to solar panels like this that are built on like a rubbery solid material for that reason. So we've already done the test here and it performed outstandingly for a 28 watt solar panel. Now we're going to take a look-see. Once this other Flexsolar, we get done with that, and I think we're going to test out the other 40 watt Flexsolar that I've got. But as soon as we get the 40 watt Flexsolars out of the way, we're going to test out this 40 watt Libra solar panel, which has the cloth design. And I'm going to be interested in seeing if that cloth design does not contribute to a better charge, the way that it absorbs the heat and dissipates that heat and keeps it away from the electronic box that you're plugging into to charge these things. So that's the conversation I wanted to have with you. There was something else I wanted to talk to you about. Oh, while we're at it, so we're trying to drain this battery here. I've got it plugged in actually now to both fans to kind of speed the process up. But man, it's trucking along. The thing about these, two things. The reason why I love them Also, the reason why I don't love them, something that you should keep in mind, because the solar panels is attached to the actual battery pack, the actual power bank, there is no way to shield the power bank while the solar panels take the full brunt of the sun. That's a real drawback to these things. You understand what I'm saying? The only thing you can do is set this whole unit out in the sun. Well, the power bank itself then is sitting in the direct sunlight just by necessity of its design. And when this thing overheats, it shuts off. It stops charging. So you say, well, then it's worthless. Well, no, it ain't worthless. That only happens on really hot days. I've used these in the wintertime, and they never shut off. In the colder months, these are great to just sit out in the direct sunlight and just leave them there. But another consideration for bug out bags or emergency bags and stuff like that is that you want redundancies built into your approach to things. So I always think, if my solar panel fails me, then, well, let's put it this way. Here's a power bank that's just a power bank. Let's say that you lose your solar panel. Now your power bank is worthless. Because it's not solar, you've got no way to recharge this. And so it's finite, right? If you're out on foot, if you're away from home in a disaster area or something like that, and you're dependent on a backup power supply, well, then it's finite. You're going to run out. This is eventually going to run down. Your flashlights then are going to be useless. Your phone's going to be useless. Your GPS is going to be useless. All these things are going to be useless if you don't have some way to recharge this on the go. So that's why I like these. They're not perfect, but if I were to lose my solar panel, then these can charge themselves. It takes a lot longer time, a whole lot longer, but they can do it, and I like that. Another thing is, let's say that these solar panels don't work, then I can always supplement it with a standalone solar panel. Another thing to consider is that you can open this wide open combined with a solar panel like this, so you can run both at the same time, is what I'm saying. This can be charging itself by its own solar panels, but you can also open up a standalone solar panel, plug into it, and now you've got both solar panel systems drawing sunlight and powering this thing up. You know, whatever time it would take just to charge this thing on its own, you can triple that time, that speed, with a standalone solar panel. So that's why I like these. They offer some security that if anything goes wrong with your solar panel, they can still charge themselves if they have to, at a much slower rate, but they can still do it. And that's how I feel about this one too. You see, it doesn't have the mini panels, it's only got one, which means this will charge ridiculously slower than this one will with its fold out solar panels. But whether it takes a week or not, it can do it. These non-solar power banks can't do it. So I've stopped buying these non-solar power banks altogether. There's no reason to own these when you can own power banks that actually have solar built into them. And then you combine that with your solar panels, and man, they work great. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about while I've got you all here and we're waiting for this Flexsolar to finish? Well, I think that's enough for now. We're about to go out and check on this Flexsolar and see how she's doing, and we'll be right back. Something I wanted to talk to you all about. A lot of you will say, oh, come on, this guy's talking down to me like I don't know this. Well, a lot of people don't know it, so that's why I'm going to explain it to you. While we got just a few more minutes left on this Flexsolar charger. Your question might be, wouldn't it be better to lay this thing down flat? To lay the solar panel down flat? And the answer is yes, it would be better. If it's noon and you live on the equator, then it would be best to lay it down flat. You got to think about where you're at on the planet. I'm in the northern hemisphere. That means that the sun is circling, around the equator. That means it's further south than me. The sun is over there. That's south. When you're laying these things down flat, that's not going to get draw the most effective power from the sun. The best way to draw the power from the sun is to tilt it so that it's facing slightly south, and that way it's taking as much of the brunt of the sunlight that it can. So that's why I've got it tilted like this.
The sun is actually directly in front of me right now. That's why I can't look. That's why I can't look at you with my eyes open. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're in the southern hemisphere, then the opposite would be true. You know, you'd want to tilt that thing slightly north to get the most sunlight. So you know the company North Face, the reason why it's named North Face is because it's a northern hemisphere company, and the mountains in the northern hemisphere, because the sun is shining from the south, the north side of the mountain is usually shadowed, and so snow there doesn't melt. It's much more treacherous usually on the north side of a mountain in the northern hemisphere. That's just a little bit of trivia there that I thought you'd find interesting. I'm curious to see how this turns out. All right, let's, when I come back, this Flexsolar 40 watt should be done, and we'll throw the other 40 watt Flexsolar on here in its place. All right, time's up on this 40 watt. Let's check her out. 61%. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? That's pathetic. That's pathetic. 61%. Do you remember what we went to from that 28 watt BigBlue? We went from 50% to 57%. This has been out here for a half hour, this 40 watt, and it's going from 57% only to 61%. And it's got 12 watt greater capacity. Unbelievable. It's pathetic. All right, let's wrap this up. And instead of trying out that other Flexsolar, what I want to do is I want to try that other cloth 40 watt. I think we're going to get a much more amazing performance out of it. And let me tell you, this is extremely hot, and that has to be affecting that. It has to be. It's very, very hot, and it'll take a long time, even though it's not in the sun anymore. It'll take a long time for it to dissipate that heat. Look at this. That is pathetic. From 57% to only 61% in a half hour. And the BigBlue, which is 28 watts, went from 50 to 57% in the same amount of time. I'll tell you, the Flexsolars I don't think I can recommend them. All right, let's do this. This is the next one we're going to try here. This Libra, it's the cloth design that I like so much that I think dissipates heat. We'll see how it does. All right, remember what we're starting out at. We're starting out at 61% on this, all right? We'll see where we end up in 30 minutes. All right, it's 30 minutes later, and this, I'm pretty excited about this. I have high hopes. Let's see what we were up to. Well, it's kind of disappointing. It's only up to 66%. Do you know what that means? That means that so far, that BigBlue 28 watt is crushing all of these other solar panels. That's what that means. Let's take this in. Switch to a different solar panel. Yeah, so something to think about with this Libra. What I wanted to tell you is that is extremely hot. That I can't even hold my hand there. But around it, it's nice and cool. That's what I like about that cloth design. I think it's superior. By the way, the cloth design is 1,000 times lighter than this rubbery design. That's quite heavy. I mean, it is very heavy, this rubbery Flexsolar. And these cloth design solar panels, just by nature, are much, much lighter. Now, as a curiosity, let's just go ahead and test out the 20 watt Flexsolar and see how it does. I've had this in my personal bug out bag just because it's light, but I think I'm going to replace everything with those BigBlue
28 watts because nothing has come close to them yet. This Liarba, the one we just got done testing, did come close. So it went from 61% to 66%. But the BigBlue, which is much lighter, much lighter, much more compact, and it is 28 watts, went from 50% to 57%. So it actually did better than the 40-watt solar charger did. Anyway, let's hook up to this one, this 20-watt, just kind of, as a curiosity, and see how it does. Okay, for this 20-watt Flexsolar, we're starting off at 66%. So let's see how much we climb from 66% in a half hour with this 20-watt Flexsolar. Okay, now while we're doing that 20-watt Flexsolar, I think we've drained, I don't know if you can see that. So in here we've dropped that two bars. And also this one, we've dropped it down by 2 bars. So we're gonna see, I'm just gonna show you, we're gonna leave this out in the sun, not for a half hour, because a half hour wouldn't be enough to even see a difference in that. Nor would it be enough to see a difference with this. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna go set them out there in the grass. We're just gonna leave them out there for the entire rest of the day. Let me tell you what time it is. It is, I can't see that. It's about 2:10. So at the end of the day, once there's no more sun, we will check back on these and see if we even get 1 bar to climb on either one. I will tell you that I've done this before, and I think I went from hardly any charge at all, so basically completely empty. I went to a full charge in about 3 days with this in direct sunlight. So that'll give you an idea, without us having to spend 3 days doing this, of what I already expect from something like this. These I've never tried to charge with just a single panel, solar panel. I've never had the patience to test her out and see how much, how long it would take me to get a full charge. I'm expecting something like that might take an entire week, probably an entire week to get a full charge, maybe more than that. But anywho, let's go ahead and take these out with that 20-watt Flexsolar, and we can do all this together. Now, something to keep in mind with these. This one right here, do you remember what I said will happen when you got the power bank right in the sun? If that gets too hot, that will stop charging. And this one will too. I'm shading it right now, but it's in direct sunlight. All right, so there's our 20-watt Flexsolar. As a curiosity, there's no way it's going to do any better than 40-watt did. And so there's our power bank with the solar panels, the unfoldable solar panels built right into it as part of the whole unit. And then right here on the end, we have a power bank that has a single solar panel on one side of the face. For the 20-watt Flexsolar, we're going to come back in 30 minutes. The other two we're going to leave out here for the whole rest of the day. All right, I've had to move these around a little bit because the day's kind of getting long in the tooth. And so I'm going to try to keep those in the sunlight as the day goes on and progresses. But here is the Flexsolar 20-watt. I'm real curious to see if we even moved an inch on this. Well, we did. It's reading 68% right now. So we went from 66% to 68%. And can you believe that little 20-watt is as effective as the Flexsolar 40-watt? That's unbelievable. 30 minutes on the 20-watt charger took us from 66, 67, 68. 2% in a half hour. And the 40 watt took us from 57% to 61%. So, well, I reckon that's about right, ain't it? The 20 watt did about half as good as the 40 watt. But the 20 watt don't weigh 30 pounds. You know, I'm exaggerating. The 40 watt doesn't weigh 40 pounds, but it ain't light, that's for sure. That's extremely hot. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that's not charging. Let's see. Yeah, you see that? You see what it's doing? I don't know if it's showing up on the camera, but that's just flashing. The whole panel there is flashing. That means it's overheated. It's shut down. So this isn't even charging anymore. Boy, that'd really put a hair in your biscuit, wouldn't it? If you were dependent on that for your life. You know, some emergency, you're trying to get in touch with family, you don't know if they're okay or anything, and your emergency backup, which is supposed to work out in the sun, won't even work out in the sun because it can't handle heat. That's why these things are really, their best use is in cooler months. Wonder if the same can be said for this one here. Let's see if it's, well, this one actually says that it's charging. So it's not, it hasn't overheated and it hasn't stopped working. It's supposedly still charging. So we'll leave that there, but the other one, you know, I don't want to burn it up, so I'm going to put it away. Did we get any charge on this at all while it was sitting out there? Let's see. One click should show us. Nope, didn't even get 1 bar of power from the time it's been out in the sun. Now granted, it's only been out there for about an hour, but that's exactly what I was telling you happens. There's no way to shield this from the sun, so it can't handle the heat that these can. And as soon as it gets too hot, it just stops charging. So that's what has happened here. Maybe as the day cools down, I'll put it back out again. Had to move this because I was losing the sun over at that other location. So we're just going to put this right here. And is there anything I can use to tilt that a bit? Well, let's see if we can do it with this piece of my daughter's chalk, which my dogs have been chewing on. Okay, that gives us just enough tilt. And like I say, we're just going to leave it out here all day. I don't think it's climbed anything. I don't think any of the bars have raised to indicate that it is holding more power yet. But we'll come back and check on her in a little bit. All right, how's she doing? Let's see if she's charging or if she's overheated. She's charging. All right, so this one seems to be able to take the heat better than that other style can. But I brought that other style out here with me because I figured, well, let's just make use of the rest of the day. And you know, I'm breaking my rule. I'm not putting this on vegetation. I'll tell you why. I got 2 pups, got 2 dogs. I can't leave this out in the yard. They'll chew her up. But we'll just leave her here and see if we can get any charge on that. It's getting long in the tooth today, and it's about 4:30 now. And this is the month of October in the northern hemisphere. We're in autumn. Let me amend that statement. We are in autumn. It is October, but it's 80 degrees today. We're in Indian summer, so you know, it's not cool like you'd expect in the autumn. It's like summer weather today. That's why that thing keeps overheating and shutting down. Well, it's at the temperature of the day where I reckon this is just fine. It's charging, it's not overheating, but you know, the sun ain't as strong this time of the day either. So I think it acts kind of wonky when I'm trying to do that on the camera out in the daylight, but it's just charging is what that's showing. This one too, just charging. Well, I'm just going to leave them there. There still is a little bit of sunlight left. There's still some light, but not enough for this solar power bank to even register the light. And yet, this one is still registering a charge. But I think we're done with this today. I wonder if this were tilted. Nope, not even when it's tilted. So not too long ago I told a little fib. I reckon it wasn't really a fib, it was just false information. It is not actually 80 degrees here today. No, I'm looking at the thermometer over there and it says it's 84 degrees right now. So it must have been 85, 86 when I said it was 80 degrees. Alexa, what is 84 degrees Fahrenheit in Celsius? So about 29 degrees Celsius. So even though it's October, even though it's autumn here, it was scorcher day. Scorcher. Definitely Indian summer going on here. Well, did you learn anything from the program? I hope you did. Even if you're somebody who knows this stuff a million times better than I do, I know you folks are out there. I hope that I perhaps gave you some things to think about in regards to philosophy behind preparing a bug out bag with solar power in mind. Let's just kind of do a review here of some of the conclusions I reached. Well, first of all, what we need to do is see if we got a single bar charge on this. No, it didn't. We did not get even a single bar of charge on this power bank, which has the solar panels, the foldable solar panels built into it. We did not get a single charge just using the solar panels that are built into it. Now, that is not to say you can't. As I told you earlier, I did do this one time. It was in cooler temperatures, so I could set it right out in the blazing sun without worrying about it overheating or anything. And I think it took 3 days, 3.5 days, but I charged it from almost zero to a full charge with only the solar panels that are built into it. So you folks remember at the beginning I said that this is my preference to have in my emergency bags, even though, like I said, it's not perfect and it has problems overheating in the sun, in the direct sun. The fact that it can charge itself at all in a reasonable amount of time makes it better than other alternatives, I think, particularly if you're carrying a spare solar panel, you know, that does not have the power bank built into it. So if you're carrying this and this, that is the magic combination in my opinion. 28 watt BigBlue solar charger, absolutely, hands down, the winner in all of the testing we did today. Hands down. In fact, it performs so much better than all of these other chargers, these other solar panels, I should say, that I think I'm going to get rid of all these solar panels and completely replace all of my all the solar panels I have. I'm just going to replace them with these 28 watt BigBlue solar chargers because it worked so well. It exceeded my expectations so much. I thought for sure that this Libra 40 watt solar charger, which is kind of styled the same way, you know, it's styled with the cloth enclosure, I thought for sure it was going to knock the BigBlue out of the water, and it didn't. It did perform not too bad, but it did not perform as well as the BigBlue 28 watt. Wow, what a thing. Look at the size difference too here. There's the Libra and there's the BigBlue. You see the size difference? The BigBlue fits into a pack so much better. It's so much lighter. and it works so much more efficiently. I mean, surprisingly more efficiently than all of these other chargers. So anyway, that would be my recommendation. Anybody, it's certainly what I'm going to go with. I'm going to carry one of these power banks that has its own solar panels that fold out, along with the 28 watt BigBlue solar charger from now on. What can I say about these Flexsolars? Well, because the company was so kind to send me a replacement, no questions asked, and without any need on my part to jump through any frustrating hoops, I hate to talk bad about them. So, I'm not talking bad about them when I tell you the truth about them. The truth is they're very well made, but they're very heavy, and their charging capabilities leave a lot to be desired. But, as far as the company goes, them reaching out to me and sending me in a replacement within days, the customer service can't be beat. So if you want to deal with somebody who just has fantastic customer service, well then by all means I would recommend Flexsolar. They were tremendous as far as their customer service goes. But the product itself is flawed. I hate to say it's got a very slow charge to it. The Libra charged faster, not by a whole lot, but it did charge faster. And I'll tell you what, if you were going to buy a Flexsolar, this the 20 watt version is not terrible. I was really surprised. So here's the thing, it charges exactly half as powerfully as the 40 watt version, right? So why am I okay with the 20 watt version but not too okay with the 40 watt version? Well, because the 40 watt version is tremendously heavy. I mean, look how thick that thing is. It's very heavy. And the 20 watt is not. Man, it's so compact and nice. It's like carrying a few manila folders. That's about what it feels like in your hand. The 40 watt is a beast. It is heavy. But again, my choice is going to be with the BigBlue 28. You just can't beat it. I'm amazed at how well this thing does. And it's actually the oldest charger that I own. All these others are new. I've had this one for a year or so. Very impressed with the BigBlue 28 watt solar charger. I think it hits a sweet spot. So even though the BigBlue 28 watt does what I want it to do, why might you go instead with a 40 watt charger? Because you might want to charge more devices at one time. I don't want to do that. That's not what we tested today. We didn't test for that. So the 40 watt chargers would be better equipped to be charging multiple devices all at one time. That's why you might decide to go with a 40 watt portable solar panel rather than the 28 watt BigBlue solar charger. If in your philosophy of preparing a bug out bag or an emergency bag and what situations you want to be prepared for, if in that philosophy you foresee yourself wanting to be able to charge many devices at one time, then you might want to go ahead and go with the 40 watt solar charger. But as you learned today, that doesn't fit into my philosophy, because what I'm doing is I'm charging a power bank, which then later I will use that power bank to charge multiple devices. Remember, I'm not charging anything except for a power bank directly off of my solar panel. My approach is to put electricity into a power bank that holds a significant amount of milliamp hours, and then if I want to charge multiple devices, flashlights, headlamp, telephone, stuff like that, I can do it directly off of the power bank itself. So that's my approach to the thing. I don't think I need a 40 watt solar charger moving forward. I think 28 BigBlue is the sweet spot. It's a shame if some of these other companies don't have a 28 watt that charges as efficiently as the BigBlue. But I'm so impressed with it and very happy that we got to do this today. I hope you all learned something, and really appreciate you joining me here for the practical Woodsman. Do me a favor, hit like down there. That does good for you. It does good for me, but it also does good for other people who are searching for this type of content. So I appreciate it. And I'll see you the next time. You guys take care of yourselves.